ओम स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. O Ramakrishna, the establisher of the eternal religion, the embodiment of all religions, and the best of all incarnations, we salute thee. In the last reading class, we left at the page 464 of this book, Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, Volume 1. Today we shall continue from where we left. In the last reading class we read that Sri Ramakrishna was referring to the extraordinary power of the incarnations. They can make a sinner into a saint. That means undergoing all the experiences of so many lives by which he would have gone through to become a saint. Immediately they give that experience to him. Several births of experience, these incarnations can gift and then make a sinner a saint. So that was the point he was referring to. So he continues his telling about this. This is as true of an individual as of a nation. It is this which has been called in the Gita, in the chapter 11, verse 8, the attainment of the divine eye, Divya Chakshuhu. So, by Arjuna, for the purpose of having the vision of the universal form of Brahman. So we know in the chapter 11, it is the Vishwarupa Sandarshana Yoga, where God reveals His universal form. So that universal form, to see that one, how much of austerities Arjuna should have practiced. All that were achieved by the grace of Sri Krishna. Immediately he could see the universal form of Sri Krishna. So he referred to this point. Being blessed with the grace of the God, the Lord. In the Bengal Vaishnava scriptures, the saving of Jagai and Madhai, the two great ruffians. Ruffians means without any culture, full of evil deeds and their effects, the papa of all the evil deeds, all was there. All the crushing of the unbeliever in them. So all that was set right by the grace of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. He was the incarnation of God. And in Christian scriptures, the vicarious atonement. Vicarious atonement, the atonement, suffering on behalf of others. So I suffer for somebody else and he goes scot-free from the sins, but I suffer for his sins. It's called vicarious atonement. So in Christian scriptures, they talk about vicarious atonement. They say of vicarious atonement of Jesus through taking upon himself the suffering of others. We could never have realized that there is truth in all this if we did not get an indication of it in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. So Sri Ramakrishna stands as evidence for this truth. It is true. When the incarnation comes, he has this power. He does it. When the master came and lived at Shampukor in Calcutta for treatment, one day he had a vision that his subtle body came out of his gross one and was walking up and down. Regarding the vision, the master said, I saw that it had sores all over the body, all over its back. I was wondering why they were there, and mother showed that it was because people came and touched my body after committing all kinds of sins, and because out of compassion for their sufferings, I had to take upon myself the results of their evil actions. For their sins, so he had to take all the suffering. I had all these sores. That is why this showing his throat he is here. Why? Otherwise, should there be so much suffering? Though this body never did any wrong, we were dumbfounded and thought, is it a fact that one can undergo the results of others' actions and make the latter free to make spiritual progress? Hearing the Master's words, many thought, out of love for him, why did we touch the Master after committing various evil acts like lying, cheating, etc.? He is suffering so much, undergoing so much for pain because of us. We will never again touch his divine body. So all this, he is explaining that this power of atoning for other sins is given to these incarnations only, not for anybody. The Master cured a leukoderma case. We remember in this connection what the Master said on another occasion. Once, a man suffering from leukoderma came and said importunately to the Master that if he would only pass his hand over his leukoderma spot, he would be cured of the disease. The Master had compassion on him and said, well, I know nothing, but as you desire, I shall pass my hand. It will be cured if Mother wills. That was the attitude of the Mother, of Sri Ramakrishna, leaving everything to Mother. Let us see what happens. And he passed his hand over it. For the whole of that day, the Master felt so much pain in his hand that he became restless and said to the Mother of Universe, I will never do such a thing again, Mother. The Master used to say later, he was cured of the disease, but the suffering was experienced showing his body here. So he was cured, but somebody has to suffer. So that suffering was done by the Master. These events of the Master's life clearly show us that in this age, the scriptures like the Vedas, the Bible, the Puranas, the Quran, the treatises on rituals, the sacred formulae, mantras, etc. can be easily understood if studied in the light of Sri Ramakrishna's life. If one does not read the life of Sri Ramakrishna, one would always think that it is all cock and bull story, taking somebody else's sin and somebody else goes scot-free for his sin and somebody else will suffer. So we would think like that. After seeing the life of Sri Ramakrishna and hearing his utterances, you cannot disbelieve. It is a fact, it is the truth of spiritual world that some people do possess this extraordinary power of taking the sins of others and making others free to progress in spiritual life. The Master also told us, my children, coins current in the time of the Nawabs are not legal tender in that of the Badshahs. So the times change. When the times change, then the codes, the rules of society also change. Like that, when the incarnations come, the rules become different. In this one particular age, you may not have any incarnation. No one will have exhibited this power. So the people of that age, they cannot believe that there is vicarious atonement. But when the age of incarnations come, the epoch of incarnations, they show it is possible. Then you cannot disbelieve. So the coins of one king may not be valid in another. Similarly, which was not valid in one king's time, may be valid in another king's time. On a superficial view, it may appear that the giving of the power of attorney is a very easy affair. So he was discussing about the power of attorney given by Girish Chandra Ghosh to Sri Ramakrishna. So he comes back to the subject. As if the power waits ready to be handed over to another. Man is a slave to his inclinations. He looks for advantage even while practicing religion. He likes to keep both worldly pleasures and the bliss of God. He considers worldly enjoyments to be so sweet, so nectarious, that he feels as if the ground is cut from under his feet at the mere idea of having to renounce them. People are very averse to renounce anything of the sensual pleasures. For he wonders, what will he then have for the support of his life? It is for this reason that he is beside himself with joy when he comes to know that in the spiritual world the power of attorney can be given. It is with this view that he can enjoy the world better if his sins are taken away by somebody else. So with this idea, people would like to give the power of attorney, but it is not possible. The author is arguing for that. He thinks, well, how grand, let me enjoy pleasures in the world to my heart's content and commit theft, cheating, robbery, etc. For that, and let Chaitanya, Jesus or Ramakrishna so arrange that I may be happy in the next world. That means let them give me the choice of taking away my all sins upon them. I say, he does not then see that I say the next world because someday I have to die. So that person is thinking like that. I know someday I will die. So I can be free in the next world also from sins if somebody can take away my sins now. That is how the worldly man thinks. He does not then see that it is nothing but a deception committed by his wily mind. That is, it is nothing but shutting his eyes to the terrible pictures of his own evil actions and going headlong to destruction. And that some day he will be forced to open his eyes to see before him a shoreless sea. He will then realize that no one has accepted the power of attorney given by a deceiver. Ah, man, how many are the ways in which you are deceiving yourself, thinking that you have struck a splendid bargain. And hail, Mahamaya, what a great delusion hast thou created in the human mind. What Ram Prasad says in his song addressing thee is indeed perfectly true. So Ram Prasad's songs the author is quoting. Hail, O Mother Dakshina Kali, thou hast produced delusion in the world, but hast made the magic wand of both thy feet. That destroyed delusion fall to the lot of Shiva. Thou art the daughter of such a magician. Thou hast kept the father of the universe in the disguise of madness, and assuming the three gunas, thou hast transformed thyself into Purusha and Prakriti. I apprehend therefore, O Prasad, that means Ram Prasad, that you have become mad as you hope to get those feet which could not be attained by the destroyer of Tripura himself. So, here the author says that you cannot deceive anybody. Some ordinary person goes and says, I have given my power of attorney to my Guru. And perhaps the Guru says, yes, I have taken the power of attorney, you can go, you will be free from your sins. Both of them will be mistaken, because that power is not given at all. The constitution itself does not have power of that type for ordinary people. The spiritual constitution, if something is like that, it gives that power of it gives that power to receive the power of attorney and atone for the sins of others to only selected persons who are incarnations of the age, like a Chaitanya, like a Jesus, like a Sri Ramakrishna. So what will happen then in that case of ordinary people giving power of attorney, ordinary gurus saying that we accept it, both of them fall. Both of them have the downgradation in their life. The power of attorney cannot be given for the mere wish Man can rightly give it only when, as the result of much effort and perseverance, the mind realizes the state in which that is made possible. And it is only then that the Divine Lord accepts it. A sort of a tremendous depression will come. So I have done something which I cannot retrieve. So I cannot go back. Neither am I able to go forward. I am in a fix. I cannot do anything. Such a helpless state when a man prays to God, I take refuge under thee, please do something for me, because I can neither move forward nor backward. I know such sins I have created, which it is very difficult to atone in one life. And because of that sins I am unable to do spiritual practices. Start doing something, even that I am unable to do. So please give me refuge and do something for me on my behalf. If that is the mood of the devotee who wants to give his power of attorney to the Guru, then God accepts. So that is the condition. Even when running after the various things of the world to become happy, man really feels that what he has attained is a shadow without reality. Even when performing spiritual practices, japa and austerities, he feels in his heart of hearts that it can never be an adequate price for the attainment of the infinite Lord. And even then, employing unsparingly all means and methods with the hope and faith of moving mountains by the sheer force of perseverance, he realizes that he has no power to move a straw. It is only then that he begins to cry aloud in a plaintive voice, O thou protector, whoever and wherever thou art, save me. And it is then that the Lord accepts his power of attorney. That means two conditions has been explained here. One, the Guru must be an incarnation of God. Secondly, the aspirant who must be in a very, very pitiable state where, there is no other way, he cannot do anything. He wants to do everything, but he cannot. His mind will not allow him. His willpower has completely failed. So his physical body is cracking. So he is unable to take up any action to get out of the mountain of sins he has committed. So that miserable condition of the aspirant and the extraordinary power of the incarnation, when these two come together, then we see a scene of the vicarious atonement, taking away the sins of one by the other. Beware of the deception of the mind. On the contrary, when the mind takes a perverse attitude and says, I do not find joy in performing spiritual exercises or calling on the Lord, but I find happiness in giving free reins to my whims and fancies, and hence I shall follow them. So I will go in my own happy, lucky way in my life. I don't find joy in spiritual practices. Therefore, I want to give power of attorney. Some people are like this. And when objection is taken with this attitude, it comes out with the prompt reply, why? Have I not given my power of attorney to God? What shall I do when He is making me act thus? Why does He not change my mind? Then one should know that giving the power of attorney in this manner is to deceive oneself as well as others and to lose the here and the hereafter. So you just say, I have given my power of attorney to God, but you have never fulfilled the conditions for that. So that means you are going into a world of your imagination. So your world of imagination will not affect your actual life. If you are a sinner, you will continue to be a sinner, and the punishment will come at the right time. You can't escape. So this is self-deception, which should be avoided at any cost. another point of view. This subject will be better understood if discussed from another standpoint. Well, let it be granted that you have given the power of attorney and that you have no need to call on God or to adopt spiritual practices. If the power of attorney has been properly given, you cannot but constantly dwell upon his compassion in your heart of hearts. You will then feel that you fell into his shoreless sea of the world and have been for long helplessly struggling in it, and that he has saved you by his grace. Just imagine how much of gratitude, love and devotion of your heart you will pour out on him when you feel like that. Will it be necessary to ask you always to think of him and remember his name, filled with grateful love for him? Will you not shake, will you not like a snake feels grateful to the person who gives it shelter and it goes under the familiar name of a house snake and does not harm the household? There is perhaps some sort of a belief in Bengal that if a snake is helped by when it is in dire difficulty, that snake will be grateful all its life to every member of that family. So that is the experience of someone. So that is popular. So he is mentioning that. And it is not filled with grateful love for him who has taken upon himself your responsibility. When the snake feels so grateful to the person who has helped him, will you not feel grateful to God who has taken the power of attorney from you? So if you find after giving the power of attorney that you do not feel any joy in calling on God, then know for certain that you have neither given properly the power of attorney to him, nor has he taken upon himself your responsibility. Just as the snake feels grateful, man would feel 1,000 times more grateful to the person who has helped him from the sea of samsara, unfathomable sea of the samsara. So if after giving the power of attorney, if you don't feel grateful for God for this, then you have not given the power of attorney. That's what the conclusion is. Do not deceive yourself anymore thinking that you have given the power of attorney, and do not attribute the stain of your own evil action to the stainless divine Lord, eternally free from the touch of any evil whatever. To do so is most maleficent and harmful to yourself. Remember the master's story of a Brahmin killing a cow. You see, this man, he has not the qualification to give the power of attorney. He thinks he has given power of attorney and blames God. You see, I have given power of attorney. God is not taking care of me. He has not corrected me at all. He has allowed me to go in my own way. Now the last moment has come in my life, but I find all my sins are there. The God Yama is there to take me for punishment. So God has betrayed me. So you blame God for no reason. So the author is quoting that. If you do like that one, you will be one of the worst, maleficent and harmful person. So you have no goodness at all in you. That to blame somebody who is blameless. God has nothing to do, but you blame him. That he is deceiving you, taking power of attorney, is not helping you. So, an example of a Brahmin is given here to make this point clear. The story of a Brahmin killing a cow. A Brahmin succeeded with much effort and great pains in rearing up a beautiful garden. He planted various kinds of fruit and flower trees and felt great joy at their luxuriant growth. One day, finding the gate open, a cow entered the garden and was cropping the plants, eating away. The Brahmin was away on business. He returned and found that the cow was even then feeding on his plants. He violently assaulted the cow and gave her such a blow with a stick on a vital part of the body that the cow died. The Brahmin was seized with fear and thought, alas, I, a Brahmin, have killed a cow, which is the greatest of sins, Gohatya. The Brahmin had read a little of the Vedanta and remembered that human sense organs derive their power of functioning from particular gods. You see, in the Vedantic cosmology, so they say different parts of the body when they are created. So each part has a Devata. We are all supposed to be part of a infinite or universal being. That means like several cells in the same body. We have billions of cells in our body, but they all belong to us. Similarly, all of us are like cells to that universal God. We are all part of God. So each one is a cell. So we are there as a part of God. For example, and in the Vedanta they say, for that means each cell is controlled by such a God. So all the hands of all the creatures, the hands of the cow, hands of the jackal, hands of the elephant, hands of human beings, hands of devatas, all the hands are the cells of one devata. So one devata is in charge of all our organs. Similarly, the feet have their own. Similarly, eyes have their own devata. All the eyes belong to one devata. So that is the conception we read in the Vedanta. The cosmology of Vedanta is a very interesting one. So this Brahmin is quoting that. For example, the eye derives its sight from the sun god. The ear its hearing from the wind god, Vayu. The hands its movement from the Indra, and so on. The Brahmin now recollected those words of Vedanta and thought, it is then not I who killed the cow. The hand was moved by the power of Indra. It is therefore Indra who has killed the cow. So the sin must go to him. That is the conclusion. The Brahmin felt relieved at this argument. The understanding of the master's words. Now, the sin of killing the cow came to enter the body of the Brahmin. So the sin has to get attached to somebody later on to bring him unhappiness and misery. So this sin came and was about to enter the Brahmin's body. But the Brahmin's mind drove it away. He said, go away, you have no place here. Indra has killed her, go to him. So the sin went to seize Indra. Indra said to the sin, wait a little please, let me go, speak a word or two with the Brahmin and come back. Seize me then if you like. Saying so, Indra assumed a human form. He entered the Brahmin's garden and saw him standing close by and looking after the plants and trees. Indra began to praise the beauty of the garden in the Brahmin's hearing and slowly proceeding towards the Brahmin, said, oh, what a beautiful garden! Is this with what good taste have the plants and trees have been planted, each in its proper place? Saying so, he approached the Brahmin and said, sir, can you tell me whose garden is this? Hearing the praise of the garden, the Brahmin was beside himself with joy and said, sir, this is my garden. It is I who have planted all this. Come, let me show you some more. While he was thus taking Indra around and talking many things about the garden, praising himself all the time, he came inadvertently to the place where the dead cow was lying. Startled, as it were, Indra asked, oh, who has killed this cow here? The Brahmin was all the while speaking of everything in the garden, saying, I have done this, I have done that, was at a loss and did not know what to say and remained utterly silent. Indra then assumed his own form and then said, Ah, you hypocrite, you have done whatever is good in the garden, and it is the killing of the cow alone that devolves on me, because I am the God associated with your hand. Is that so? Here is your sin of cow killing, take it. Saying so, Indra disappeared, and the sin came and took possession of the Brahmin's body. So hypocrisy could not save the man from the sin. So hypocrisy can be practiced with others, but the universal law is there that certain things will happen if you do in such a particular way. That cannot be abrogated. So the author tells us we should be very sincere when we do things. There may not be anybody outside to say it is wrong, but our conscience is there. Our own higher intellect is there, which tells which is right and which is wrong. We commit wrongs not without knowing. Many times we know it is wrong, even then we commit. The higher intellect in us always says this is wrong. But even then, moved by other forces, maybe other emotions, or by past samskaras, so we commit something wrong, which our mind also says wrong, in spite of which we do it. So then we become hypocrites. Though we say that something is wrong, we go and do it. So this is the case that was given. So many more arguments like that will come. Many more truths will be revealed to us in our next class. Today we shall close here. Niranjanam nityam anantarupam bhaktanukampadhrita vigraham vai Ishavataram parameshamidhyam tam Ramakrishnam shirasa namamaha. O Ram Krishna, the taintless one, the eternal one, the one with the infinite forms, the one who has assumed your form out of compassion for the devotees, the incarnate Supreme Soul, and the adorable Lord of all, we salute Thee, bowing our heads to You.